That's the wrong way.
No, she's at this meeting. Oh, no. Sorry.
It's going to be long. I don't want to make sure I don't lose power. We can just one of those little wide things.
We'll call this meeting to order. If you would follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag.
Identification from Charlie. Is Charlie here? Yep.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the time that we have to come together, and thank you for these leaders that are here to make decisions. Father, I pray that you guide them as they do that. We invite you to be with us and just go with us and keep us safe from all harm and all danger. For it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Charlie. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? So we're opening up the budget meeting first, the finance meeting first.
We can do that, yes, sir. Finance Committee roll call. Fenton, Denham. Here. LeBlanc.
Here.
Milton.
Here.
Stapp. Here. Yancey. Meenan. McConnell. Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Board of Aldermen.
And now we need a Board of Aldermen roll call, please.
Fenton, Denham. Here. Cooper.
I'm here.
Milton.
Yep.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Howden.
Here.
LeBlanc.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. On the agenda, we have a discussion of the City of Branson 2023 preliminary budget and capital improvements presented by Ben Hart.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, we went through the five-year forecast, staffing, study, compensation, and utilities, part one. It was over water. I know Kendall's had he's been doing a lot of work over the weekend yesterday. I'm going to kind of switch it up if I can have your permission to do a few of the departments that are a little shorter first, and then we can get to utilities and continue that conversation. What I've got in order is fire, and the directors know this: fire, public works, planning, parks, admins, and utility. So the first up would be fire. Ted, you want to come on up?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think he's waiting for the 5-minute timer. 2 months. Happy birthday, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you.
Aw,
Saw something about that today. You ready?
I'm ready.
I actually prepared the comments and we'll just drive questions off of that. The primary focus of the fire department's 2023 budget is the construction of Fire Station 4, plus our fire department personnel, operational and capital budgets. Fire Station 4 architectural documents are complete and submitted to the community development for review. We expect the construction documents to be reviewed over the next 7 to 10 days and then scheduled to go out to bid with construction companies over the next 30 to 45 days. And we are praying for solid bids that are within our budget in today's world of construction cost. The FY3 proposed budget will also bring to you a request for a fire engine for the new Fire Station 4, plus the 12 additional firefighters and an increase in the budget programs to support the operational costs of the new building. So you'll see Our operational costs are up about 30% across the board. We look at electricity, water, sewer, insurance, things that cost us to operate that additional fire station. The Assistant Fire Chief has worked diligently with our team to establish operating projections based on these 3 current fire stations, plus accounting for inflation affecting our current operations. Baker Tilly has placed all of these budget items to start January 1. Obviously, we hope to be in the beginning stages of construction, and therefore not all personnel, operating expenses, and new fire truck will not be paid on January 1 within this budget program. However, we do have a plan established by the Operations Division Chief for hiring the necessary personnel to operate from this firehouse. An orientation training plan has been established by the Training Safety Division Chief that will be ready to go when these positions are approved within the FY23 budget. The FY23 budget request also focuses on repair work needed on the fire station number 2 located in Branson Meadows. This all-brick building has several gaps and water-related issues, though it appears to be structurally sound today. Estimates by vendors place this project at or above $1 million to sustain the operational use of the structure. This project will also support some basic remodeling of the 26-year-old fire station, and the project will be self-funded internally as designed by the Baker Tilly team. Other capital items requested within the FY23 budget include SCBA bottles for Fire Station 4, replacement of the concrete apron at Fire Station 3, which is getting close to being a gravel bar, which has deteriorated immensely, and firefighter ballistic protection to support the safety of our personnel participating in hostile events with other public safety partners. Replace the generator at Fire Station 3 and a replacement of the battalion chief command vehicle. Additionally, the Baker Tilly team and our finance department staff members has brought a new light to the budget process, and this has been real. It's been encouraging and supportive using the funds available from our revenues and using new financial strategies to help us move forward to provide the services our residents, businesses, and visitors expect. This includes making whole the equal budget increases to the Public Safety Fund above the 2017 budget base with the budget projects reflecting an increase equal to the projected growth in the future years. Thank you for work on that direction and following up with that. That is a huge help in us operationally in the fire department. Baker Tilly has worked with our team to take this proposed FY23 budget with revenue expenditures balancing for the next 5 years. That means personnel expenditures, projected increases in salaries, trying to make sure that we're in the black for several years to come, noting that it was upside down as early as just a few weeks ago. So I give that credit back to the partnership with Baker Tilly. Hopefully this gives a brief overview of the Fire Department FY23 budget request. This focuses on construction of Fire Station 4, approving the 12 new personnel, and the capital request to support fire department operations. Plus, in your budget packet, you'll see a 5% projection in payroll for everybody in the city, and we'll be one of those departments. In closing, I'm extremely thankful for the work our Assistant Chief and Division Chiefs, plus Crystal, has done to prepare the budget. It requires their time to drill down to their personnel who help manage several staff functions and their program budgets to gain their input and engagement to prepare a solid budget for your consideration and approval, one that is balanced for FY23 and hopefully the next 5 years. Again, thanks for your consideration. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
30 seconds. Thank you for that report. I will tell you that I really appreciate what Ben and Baker Tilly are doing, and to hear that all those budget items that you just mentioned are funded in our plan is very comforting. Is there any questions from anybody on the Finance Committee? Excuse me, what was your, Betsy, do you have a question?
I do. Chief Martin, I guess I have concerns, questions as to why are we only asking, and I don't know if you're only asking or we're told you are only allowed the number of personnel you need for the new station. So I'll explain my understanding and then you can correct me if my understanding is incorrect. And of course I did a presentation on NFPA 1710 to the chamber to get the support for the public safety tax. I have a family history of firefighting and understanding a little bit of that and what my day job is, deal with you guys daily. So what I understand right now is you guys run 4 guys, you schedule or hope to get 4 guys per shift at each station, except what continuously seems to be is time off, sick, then you go to the, what's it called, the barrel. And so ultimately, people that are in the barrel have to give up sort of their freedom to get called back in, which means if they are off and they decide they want to go have dinner and a drink with their family, well, technically they really can't, but they don't get paid to be on call, but they're supposed to be on call. So there's this, I don't know why we're not asking for additional personnel, whether it's floaters that can float between station to cover vacations, so that at any given time, we're at least hitting the NFPA 1710 minimum of 15 guys responding to a fire. That's for a low hazard. We have theaters, hotels, the Hilton, the Radisson, the list goes on, where, holy cow, I know we can't staff to have 64 guys on shift at any given time. But I just don't understand why we are not taking this seriously and pushing to hit that minimum 15-person standard.
Just to give you some background for everybody else on the board, we currently staff each station with 4 people budgeted, and we allow to drop down, so that's 12. So we drop down to 10 to allow vacation leave, sick leave, and then to a policy change that we made, lessons learned from COVID, we will drop down to 9 only if we make one page out to say, hey, are you available? And that, for the first time ever in Chief Houston and my career, we were under budget for overtime for the first time ever last year. We're usually about 100% over. So we're trying to work the strategy on that level. Then I'm going to just share with you that as a fireman, I'd love to have as many people as I get my hands on. That's great. When we're budgeting, when we're looking at Station 4, I was worried in previous months that I was going to be told, deal with what you got. And so I'm very thankful that we're at 4, because I really expected to be at 3 on that station when we hit budget time. So I'm thankful to be at the 4 for a starting point for that station house. I did not expect that, and that's a huge win within our budget planning to do that. I also had a city manager tell me years ago, about 3 or 4 city managers ago, you know, I can't put a fireman and police officer in every street corner and stop every crime and every fire, and that's correct. And so the fireman hat says, yes, I want more staffing. The leadership side says, I've got to do other strategies. I either call back people or I call mutual aid partners. That's not a popular answer, because our mutual aid partners, though most of them are well-trained and well-equipped, they're all volunteer. We don't know what we're going to get. Springfield Fire, on the other hand, has all career departments around them. So they know that when they call mutual aid for a large fire, very few and far between in most of our communities now, you get that response. So I have to sit back and take the heat of, we're not going to take action until we have enough people here to do the effective response for us. Firemen don't like that either. I don't like it, to sit back and wait. But for everybody to go home, that's our job, that everybody's going to go home tonight. So we're going to think about the safety side first. Then track back to what I shared a few minutes ago. Just about 3 weeks ago, we were upside down next year, budget-wise, on projections. Then, because of strategies used by Baker Tilly for the financing of the fire engine, the Station 2 work, the Fire Station 4, now we're projected to be in the black with growth for the current payroll especially, to go out 4 or 5 years. If we have more growth, and you've projected very conservatively at 1%, I might be able to come back and readdress your question and add personnel. So we had the HR department in their staffing study had actually looked at our request for 2 other positions that were not operational, and we actually asked to hold those off until I made sure, darn sure, I could put 4 people in that fire station. And just 2 weeks ago, I didn't think that was going to happen. So to answer your question as much as I can, yes, the fireman in me wants more, but we'll use some other strategies to get there. It may not happen right January 1st of this year, but I see the day coming that we either do some supportive part-time personnel, or we use some other strategies within using the floater, for example. But the barrel has been reduced because of the strategy of the leave request by going down to 10 and dropping the 9 down. Only my goal was I don't want someone to be here at 6:45 in the morning and someone call in sick and now you're stuck. All of our staff have plans for their days off. So I hate the barrel system, but it's required to have some kind of staffing here every day, which we prefer to be 12. We live with it at 10, and occasionally we get to 9. So I don't know if that rambled too much, but I hear you, but I can't quite get there in FY '23 without a few more dollars, a lot more dollars.
I guess then maybe that statement should be directed to our board. I said it with the police department, I'll say it again with the fire department. We live in one of the most conservative places in the country. Our citizens voted for a tax because they believed so strongly that we needed to increase our police and fire personnel. I just, when are we as decision makers going to take that seriously? I know we're getting a new station. That's huge, huge, huge. Applause to this board for making that happen. That's incredible. It doesn't discount work comp numbers for firefighters. They get exhausted. They, when you've worked your shift and you're supposed to go home at 6 a.m. and you're told you're going to have to stay, and you've been working all night, running medical calls, running car accident calls, fire alarm calls, sprinkler calls, frozen pipes. I mean, the list goes on and on. These guys don't sit in the station, guys and gals don't sit in the station and sleep for 12 hours. So I feel like as a city, as leaders, we have to really start getting real about if it's a priority, let's find the money and make it a priority. And I know, Ben, you and your team are doing a phenomenal job of turning that corner. I don't want to let up on that. It's push, 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 push. Taking care of these police and fire guys, getting them staffed, getting them the pay they deserve has to be a priority in this city.
Go ahead.
Betsy, what would that number, what would be a comfortable number for you? You said you're running, dropping about 10, is that where you're at, you said?
We're at 12 budgeted, we'll go up to 16, plus the battalion chief is 17, plus one of us is always on call as well.
So what is that dream number?
So Clay, and I'm happy to share this with you, a low hazard, meaning single-story structure fire, is a minimum of 15 responding firefighters. If we're only running 9 on any given shift, yeah, the chiefs are on call, so.
It's a response time issue at that point.
Exactly. So you have, I mean, and here's the problem, right? That's if Station 1 is already running a car accident,
Yeah.
and then there's a house fire, well, now you've got 6 guys responding. So every time one station is on a call, we're one fire away from losing life, whether it's, because these firefighters, they're dedicated. And of course, safety is first, but I guarantee you line up any of our firefighters right now, and if 3 guys showed up on a fire and they're told you can't go in until there's at least 9 here, and someone says there's a child in a house, any one of them to a man is gonna run in that house. Guarantee. It's not safe, it's not right, but we as a city are putting them in those positions by not getting, give them 15 and let them go down to 12, but giving them
So you would
12
say-
and making them go to 9 is crazy.
So you would say at this number that community properties at risk, lives are at risk? I mean, is it a, well, you know what I mean. I mean,
No, the whole goal is to build what's called an effective response force, and she's addressing a topic that's for about a 1,500, 2,000 square foot building. So it just comes back to, we either hold up, and I take the heat with Jason up here, why'd you hold up? Because we're gonna send everybody home, or we wait on mutual aid partners to come in, we call back people off duty that's available. So it's just those strategies in there. We're very fortunate to be where we are, and I'm not discounting this, but there's There's either the volunteer world, or you got a driver only, or you got one or two guys, and we're very fortunate to have worked our way up to a four-man crew, thanks to grants that we worked through over the years, and then work into adequate funding. And so I'm hoping with what Ben shares that if we have higher growth over the next couple of years than the 1% projected, then we can come back and talk sooner than later.
Chief, can I chime in for a second? What are our busiest two houses? 1 and 2?
I don't have the exact stats. Station 2 was always a little bit lower, but they have been climbing up steadily with development along 248, Gretna Road, so their call volume has increased as well.
Okay.
Plus, remember that we double cover each other, so they may run more with the ladder companies is what that is. So they may run all parts of the city to help when necessary.
Okay. According to NFPA Standard 1710, for a high-volume fire, they recommend 5 per engine, 5 per truck. And right now we're running 4, possibly 3. Would it benefit you to add an additional 6 people? Say 1 to each shift on House 1 and House 2, and a couple of floaters? Say
Anything
8 more
extra
people?
improves your effective response force.
So if we gave you 8 more people on top of that 12, could we work that out, Ben? You won't be able to afford
It'll be
that?
upside down.
What about 6? Maxed out right now. With the public safety sales tax, we're maxed out.
Yeah, I'm going to say for 2023, what the chief's talking about is exactly right. If the way this budget is designed is if that conservative number, talk about revenue, comes up above our expectation, Kathy and I are going to go right back to him and say, okay, what do you have on slate? And if that's another firefighter, you're going to see it sooner than October of '23. That's just the way this budget works. It's not going to be a one-time shot. To your Betsy's point, that goes with all the directors. We didn't call any of the shots for the directors. They called the shots. They come to us. Here's what I got to have, and here's why I have to have it. So we didn't limit anybody to anything. We're just saying, you guys are the experts at your field. Come talk to the board. Here's where you're at. Now, to your question, yeah, if we have the money next year, by God, we're going to plug it into that 5-year forecast. That's why we built it. These guys are going to just see it on a quarterly basis. So say by July 1st next year, we may be asking for a couple more firefighters or another patrol officer. They're out of the same fund. But we're going to be looking at that on a regular basis. We're not going to wait till October.
Okay, this being the first time we've actually seen a sustainable 5-year plan,
Yep.
there's no way to cut and find the money for these.
That's going to be up to these guys on what they need to cut to balance it out. We could definitely look at that.
My recommendation would be we go for more firefighters.
I'm sorry, say that again.
My recommendation would be we need more firefighters
Yeah.
to be safe.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Chief Martin, and I'm just one alderman, but obviously you're hearing what Chuck is saying. I'm pretty much in full agreement with that. I've always been a personnel-first guy. I think that's extremely important. So whenever we can get that, when you feel, just know that I think there are aldermen up here who feel that personnel is #1 priority.
Anybody else? Ralph?
Sure. Happy birthday. Thank you. I think it's prudent to recognize that, just 6 months ago, when we talk about budget, like, that was really up in the air. It wasn't until Ben came on that we really got a good handle on exactly where the budget was, exactly where those funds were to be able to do that 5-year projection, and the fact that that's done now. And, he just said there just a minute ago that it's not next year, it could be first quarter that those personnel are added. And kudos to, I think you made the statement that, or Ben made the statement that the directors told me what they wanted, and he was able to do that. And I think that speaks highly of, that's exactly what the board was looking for. We wanted the directors to tell, what do you want, and to see if it was in the purview of what we could deliver. And obviously, these things are coming to pass, but I think it's because of, we now have a better grasp or more awareness of where the finances are, that we're able to do those projections in a way that are going to deliver those personnel a whole lot quicker than later. And it'll meet those needs a lot sooner than later. And I applaud you guys for putting it together and, speaking your truth and knowing what you want as an expert and what you need right now, but knowing that we need more, and we're all in support of that for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Ralph. Ruth has joined us online. She's on Zoom.
There she is.
Hi, Ruth. Do you have any comments? Uh-oh.
I believe she was muted.
There she is.
Okay, now I can comment. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
No, I just think it's fantastic that there's open communication now with the directors and with Baker Tilly and with the board. And thank you, Ted, so much for sharing what's needed. And we hope to just continue to move forward. If we need more personnel, then that's something we need to look at.
thank you, Ruth.
I got one more question for you, Ted. I'm not sure, this might be for Jan. Do you know anything about the steps as far as when you make captain or whatnot? My understanding is we're not competitive with like Springfield and Ozark.
Hit two different topics. One is when you make captain, when you make in the steps. The city has an adopted step plan that's 20 years strong right now. I believe, cautiously state that you're working on citywide, maybe reducing those steps as a proposal to you in the future on that. Captain is all part of a promotional process.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's our intention to bring to the board an agreement with the IFF to reduce the steps from 21 down to 10. So in that respect, we will be very competitive.
Okay, thank you.
That will be very exciting to have those conversations. Thank you, Jan.
Yes, thank you.
Kathy, any questions, comments? Okay. Ted, very appreciative. I'm hopeful that you not only hear the words, but you see the actions, how supportive this board and our finance committee is.
We've seen a lot of actions this year that have been positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
His trucks doesn't run red, but next is Keith coming up on Public Works.
Are you trying to run out the time from Kendall?
Mayor, members of the board, good afternoon, and Finance Committee. I put together a few notes here, and where I'm going to start is with for our budget in the Public Works and Engineering Department is for our staffing. Right now, we have currently asked for 5 positions. One of them would be a project manager for our upcoming infrastructure projects we have going, our capital projects. 2 maintenance worker 1 positions, 1 maintenance worker 2, and an office assistant for our service center, which we have not had in many years now. It was just discontinued, and we continue to struggle with that assistance down there at our service center, or the garage. Where I came up with these, when Jan asked for everybody to put together a salary or a staffing study, our department put together this document here. And it took into account all of the hours that all of our staff works, what they do, what percentage of time they done with each type of project, whether that was paving, sidewalk work, cleaning out storm sewers, whatever that had to do with infrastructure, you know. So we put together a pretty detailed list. And several years ago, we started a running spreadsheet of different projects we needed to work on throughout the city. That may be busted up curb and gutter, or a piece of sidewalk needs taken out, or whatever that was. Clean the storm sewers out. We have 3 big base savers on the landing we keep pumped out. You know, we do our best to do those every year. Sometimes it'll roll to every other year. But as part of our MS4 permit, that's one of our requirements to do that. And if you've never seen those, they're huge underground vaults. You know, they're probably 15 by 20 by 10 or 12 feet deep. So they have to be pumped out, all the sludge and the floatables and everything else, so they don't discharge into Taneycomo. So anyway, those are basically our staffing study. And when we went through, and at the bottom of our spreadsheet, I asked for a running update list as of today. And right now we have approximately 5,000 man hours that we're behind on, you know, maintenance projects. And that, you know, that all consists of basically concrete work, asphalt work, crack filling of our streets, tree trimming, storm drainage maintenance, pavement marking, striping, utility repairs, and, you know, the list just goes on and on and on. But those are each category, and we keep them categorized like that. And right now, we're just a fraction over 5,000 man-hours to get that done, which we may drop off one or two, but we add 3 or 4, you know, every day it changes. And we're always in reactive mode instead of proactive mode on our maintenance around town here. It's, you know, it's just the nature of the beast with this kind of work. But anyway, so that's the 5 personnel needs that I'm asking for. And, you know, we've met numerous times with Ben and went over all of our needs and everything. And, you know, every time I talked to him, I said, and we've got money in the budget, and, you know, lo and behold, he says yes. And it's always been the other direction, you know, in previous years and stuff. And I continue to ask him, so we got money in the budget to do this. And, you know, he keeps reassuring me. Not that I think he's telling me a fib or anything, but anyway, our next big thing I'm going to talk about just for a few minutes, and I'm going to try to be brief because I know Kendall and probably Cindy's going to talk a lot up here after a while. Always going to poke Cindy. But anyway, the capital projects is our big ticket item is the downtown streetscape projects, to try to finish those projects out. And over the next couple, 3 years, the design and construction for phase 4 of the downtown, the best we can estimate right now with construction costs, you know, fluctuating as much as they do, is approximately $6 million for the downtown streetscape. Design will be approximately $800,000-900,000, I'm guessing. Best we can estimate from just the past design cost and what we're seeing out on Highway 76 also. But that would basically be from Veterans Boulevard on Main Street all the way down to Branson Landing, the big hill and everything, and which it's going to be a little more challenging on the design of it because of the switchbacks, trying to get people in the front doors of those businesses with the sidewalks meeting ADA compliance, you know. So it's a little more challenge there and a head scratcher. So, but that is our big ticket item for the capital projects. Our capital equipment, you know, I've got a list in. Chad, was you going to put that up on the screen or not? It's in the budget book on page 27. There it is. I can't see it, so. Anyway, this is a list of our capital equipment and some of the other capital projects, but our total cost for the 2023 is about $4.4 million. That includes some of our box culvert construction that we've done in-house design on, and we've got 2 CAD people now on our AutoCAD, so we're doing the in-house design for the Celtic Bridge. It's a big box culvert. MoDOT has rated it way below what it should be, and they've even put a load limit on it now. School buses can't even cross it anymore. So the only other 2 entrances into Taneycomo Acres out there is low water crossings. So if they happen to have a flood or something, school buses couldn't get in, people couldn't get out, emergency personnel couldn't get in unless a helicopter in. And that one box culvert is the only way in, and a fire truck certainly can't cross it. So, but we done the design in-house. I done all the hydrology calcs, and we're getting ready to get that out to bid for this year. It was budgeted for this year, actually. So our other projects that we've got listed here is to finish up segment 1 and 2 design for Highway 76, replace a 1992 or 3. It's the old brush chipper that we don't even hardly use it anymore. I'm afraid it'll fly apart. And so that's one of our hot priorities for our pieces of equipment. Cliff Drive stormwater improvement, that's a big box culvert that needs to be designed and built. Our ground penetrating radar equipment for utility locates. All the new construction you see on 76 out there, the new light poles, the PED poles, the electric conduits, things like that that are underground that we buried. Well, we're responsible for doing the utility locates except for the big duct bank. But our light poles and stuff is our responsibility, and our signals Now that we took over MoDOT signals, we're the only ones that have the plans for those signals, so we have to do the utility locates before people, 1-800 dig right, before anybody goes out and digs. So that's what that equipment is for there. And we have the staff to keep that up and running right now, should we get that equipment.
Keith, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yep.
The two for Highway 76, do we get reimbursed through the CID for that?
That
for
is
those
coming out of the
funds?
CID budget there, that money
Perfect.
is.
So that's not really part of your,
Right, it's part of the CID funds. Yeah,
Perfect.
The
Thanks.
tax. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I thought that might be a little bit confusing putting it in there, but it is part of our budget, but the CID funds that though. Yep, that's right. Branson Landing Boulevard bridge railing, as you all know, if you've driven across it down there, the pedestrian railing is all rusted looking and everything, and we put it in the budget for the last 3 years, and it keeps getting kicked out. And, you know, I'm not going to hammer the priority-based budgeting, but it just didn't fit the criteria that was listed there, so thank God we got rid of that this year. That's all I'll say about it. Let's see. The 76 CID Maintenance Building, that one will also come out of the CID funds should we decide to build that. And if you remember, you know, several years ago, we built the salt barn out there. Our guys done all the concrete flat work. The only thing we really jobbed out was the vertical walls for the salt bays and the roofing to go over it. We done all the in-house design on it. We cleared the lot and we built everything. So that's something, that's why it's not any more expensive than that. We can do a lot of the site work with our own staff, and we utilize our staff to do that because they're very knowledgeable in it, and I've got some people that know how to set grades, and so we do a lot of that in-house.
Keith, haven't we been talking about that maintenance building for a couple of years?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And we just had to put it off and put it off and.
Yeah, and right now we run them out of Stockstill down there, which is a long way to, kind of going from Memphis to St. Louis, you know, the wrong way around.
Yeah.
So, but that's why that building is needed, because as we expand Highway 76 and the improvements, it's going to be more important to have people right there closer to it and, you know, to be more efficient and, you know, more economical.
And Keith, under departments where it says like transportation or 76 CCID, that's the funds that's coming out of, correct?
The CID.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. Let's see, Unit 98, that was an old Explorer sport track that Larry Van Gilder had when he was here, you know, 25 years ago. And finally, the transmission went out, and I said, no, we're not spending any more money on it. That's crazy, spend any more money on something that's got 250,000 miles on it. So it went to the auction last year. Let's see, of course, 70, what did I do here? The 76 1 and 2 construction, we anticipate to maybe spend that 1.2 million next year, but you know, that's still up in the air. It depends on the design, the charrettes, how they go, and you know, where we get with the design process, because we've got a lot of people putting in ideas for, you know, the wow factors and everything else. So, you know, that may or may not happen, but we wanted to have a number plugged in there for close to the end of the year. Historic Downtown Phase 4 streetscape, that 990,000 is basically designed for it. That'll probably won't even stick a shovel on the ground next year for that portion of the project. But that was one of them that Cody and Chuck and I met with the people downtown about the parking meters, and that was the only way we could fund it. Well, after I started looking into it and talking to Ben more, you know, we have money there to fund this project. So, but, you know, whether it gets passed or not, that's still yet to be determined. Caldwell Way is another low water crossing that we'll do the in-house design on. And I'll probably end up doing the hydrology calcs for that, and then we'll draw it all the plans, construction plans up in-house. And then we'll bid it out to a contractor to build it all. Paint striper, that is a truck-mounted paint striper. It will slide in, it's on a big rack, and it basically slides in the back of a pickup to stripe some of our own streets, because right now we're dependent upon a contract company to come out and do our striping and everything, and waiting on them. and getting it bid out, and the price of this, will more than pay for it. Because right now, we pay 50 to 75 cents a foot for a stripe. Somebody come out and stripe it with, they can do it really quick, but, we've got the staff that knows how to do it. We have a small one, but it's, on big roads, it's just got one wheel in the front, and you'll get a snake-looking effect going down the road, which doesn't look too good. So anyway, that is pretty much everything I was going to talk about, I believe. Let me make sure here.
So Keith,
Yes, sir.
if I recap what I think I heard,
Okay,
you've asked for 5 additional employees.
correct.
And I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, Ben, have you added those 5 employees into their budget? So with those 5 employees, you feel comfortable catching up on the 5,000 man-hours that you're behind?
I'm not saying we'll catch up, but we can,
Take a big bite
it'll
out
sure
of it.
help, Because right now, when you take into account the holidays and people's vacations, sick time, hardly ever do you ever have a full staff. Once in a while you do, but we got several old timers, I guess for a better word, that have a lot of vacation built up, and one of them just retired on us, our street sweeper, Andy Canody. So you won't see Andy in a street sweeper anymore to be somebody new. He retired last week, was his last day, after 31 years, Cheryl, is that right? Yeah, 30 years with the city. We're going to miss him. He had a lot of knowledge, and he could run any piece of equipment we had down there. But we got new people coming on, and they're doing a great job, so.
Well, once again, I believe I can speak for the board and the finance department. The fact that you asked for the 5 employees, and that's what Ben was able to put into your budget, getting you closer to getting caught up and closer to being proactive instead of reactive, that is music to our ears.
What?
Uh-oh.
We didn't put it in there, though, did we? Oh, yeah, we did, yeah. Our assistant engineer position, which will be rolled back upstairs as soon as the planning director position is filled. So that is in here.
Hey, Keith, just a quick question.
Yeah, man.
Would it help more to have more projects internally based? You mentioned that you got a second AutoCAD designer that kept a lot of the design in-house. Would that cut the cost down if you had a few more personnel on staff in order to keep from outsourcing as many projects?
We could probably, we just added one new CAD designer about, 2 months ago. Kelly started, something like that. And world of difference, she has a big surveying background. And right now she's working on her PLS, or professional land surveying license. And she has a lot of good knowledge and a lot of experience in that area. And it's been a wealth of knowledge and help for our departments so far. And, but yeah, we could cut down on some, but some of the bigger projects, we just don't have the time and the staff to dedicate to something like that. So, but the smaller projects, absolutely. We can put plans together all day long for sidewalk projects, things like that. Yeah.
Keith, what is the count in your department? How many?
31 total full-time staff.
31?
Yes, sir. Anyway, that's, probably, 2 years ago when we started contracting our mowing out, we could not find seasonal positions. It was like pulling teeth trying to find anybody for our mowing crew through the summer. So what put us so far behind a lot of times was we'd have to pull our full-time staff off to put on mowers and weed eaters through the summer because we couldn't find part-time help, So we've started contracting that out with the mowing companies now. And so I can keep all the full-time staff back on their regular job instead of on the back of a mower or something.
Yeah, I was glad to see you do that.
Yeah, so that was a big change and helped a lot.
So this question is maybe more for Ben, but I know recently we have sent out for a lot of grants to help us with a lot of our infrastructure. We're still in the waiting process to see if that gets processed. So if any of those get processed it'll just help us get more of these things done.
Yep.
That's great. I make sure, and if you would, maybe every so many months, just give us an update on how we're doing with those. Thank you, Ben.
And that was one reason I have asked for the project manager position, because our fire station kicks off, police station, you know, our Highway 76 construction, Kendall's projects that we do project management on and stuff. There's no way two people can handle that.
Yeah,
you know.
you'll be busy.
So we're trying to get ahead of the 8 ball, you know, asking for it now. And I mean, a person may turn up next week, but I highly doubt it.
Yep.
So anyway, that's all I have. Any other questions I can answer?
Keith, I'm very impressed and proud that you're our director. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you all.
You got Michael Wood next on planning. He assured me he's got like 30 seconds and he'll be done.
You get 15 seconds. Okay, you're done.
30 seconds. I love it. Mayor, members of the board, and members of the Finance Committee, I look forward to talking to you, and here we are. So basically, the only ask for the Planning and Development Department is a Office Assistant 3. It's a 2 or a 3 that we'd like to work into it. Kind of some background information of why is this position needed is you have three different divisions. You have administration, you have building, and you have planning. So we've just rebuilt the planning department, the building department. Most of those gentlemen are getting to the point of retirement. So that's going to be the next one to turn over. And then administration, they take care of all the reviews that are down there. So just to give you a typical year to this point, so to October, we're looking at 4,812 total inspections. So there's always somebody in the background working those pieces together. 2022 building reviews, 1,224. Last year was $80 million of true property changes that you saw. I don't foresee us hitting a true 80 million in town with the investment that's here, because it kind of goes as in phases as big projects go along, but there's a lot of stuff that's out there where we are on track. Probably, I would say we'll probably be about 10 million under. So if you guys can find me a $10 million project that'll go in the next few weeks, that would be fantastic. Planning had 258 year to date and 711 reviews. So our motto down there, they didn't have a motto when I came down there. I said, how do you go with no motto? So preserving our past, protecting our present, planning for the future with outstanding service to the community. And that is the thing that is missing, and that is the thing that I've been trying to deliver since January 4th that I came down there, is how do you get that outstanding service to the community? And I think that instrumental spot of customer liaison that you have implemented, that hired and started on Monday, the instrumental spots of office specialist and office assistant 3, that when you're coming through the door, there's somebody that can sit there and say, how can I help you? We added computers there. We opened it up. You know, how can we help you when you come through the door? It is heavily computer, which was a great vision that was ahead before coronavirus, and there's still a lot of help. So when people call in, they expect somebody to be on the phone and answer some of their questions. So that is my only ask. And with that being said, I will defer my time to Kendall. So happy to answer any questions. Where'd he go? Oh, he's in the bathroom. Look at that.
Michael.
There he is.
Hey, Michael.
Yes, sir.
So this is kind of a reorganization. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I like to say, I think we need a planning director personally, and I look forward to us as a city getting to that point. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's out online. I tout that every single day. So, yeah, I mean, we've made a lot of strides. I mean, I don't think that we can look back on the past year and say, hey, we didn't try a lot of different things, and we didn't say, hey, what's the vision? What's there? What a lot of people don't understand is that division is very similar to Keith's guys that now are IT is GIS. Everybody uses the planning department, including Cindy. I mean, Cindy's, yeah, I need to bill her. So anyways, engineering, planning, building, utilities, stormwater, finance, code, public works, police. I mean, Tuesdays are an exciting day for me, but by the end of Tuesday night, you know, we have open for business every Tuesday. We started with police and code enforcement this morning. I am grateful they're in our department, down there meeting with us, talking about the big picture that we started is still there and the pieces are still working, but you have different department directors that are helping to work together as one. And I hope that, you know, the planning director, you find the very right person and you continue forward. And it's a great time for Branson. It really is.
And I agree with that. Kathy, would you make sure that, to meet Michael's desires of having that excellent customer service, would you come up with, and I'm not sure how to introduce our customer liaison position. They've been hired. So what the community can expect from them, how to get a hold of them, and maybe a little bit of background of here's the areas that they're going to be helpful to our community in, and here's how you get a hold of them.
Happy to do so.
Thank you. Marshall?
Yeah, because the intent of that was for that to be a person that us aldermen utilize, you know, because when people come to us with things, it's not prudent for us to go every Monday down and say, this is what we need to do. So that's why that kind of person, because we get contacted all the time, is so valuable, and they need to know us.
You bet.
So I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Thank you again, Michael.
You're welcome.
You sure Cindy doesn't come before Kendall?
She does.
Yeah.
Cindy most definitely comes before Kendall. He's abdicated his time to her.
Yeah, because we're out of time.
I know.
Clay says, poor fella.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Board and Finance Committee, thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to talk about the budget. I'll try not to talk too long. Keith Francis, he likes to tease me a lot about that. Our 2023 budget, operating budget, is pretty similar to past budgets. It, just to remind you, it manages, or it provides for the management of all of our programs, our special events, our facilities, parks and trails. And just to reflect real quick, we've had a good couple of years in Parks and Rec. I mean, our participation has gone quite a bit up. This year, we're expecting about 5,500 participants in youth sports, which is 10% up. 18,000 visits at the pool, which is 29% up, and over 5,000 expected to attend special events by the end of the year. So that's kind of what we do, right? And so excited about that. Tournament visitation, if you were here this summer, you ran into some girls playing softball. So we had 5 World Series, and we hosted 52,000 attendees of that, which is 22% up, and 40 tournaments with estimated direct visitor spending of $29.2 million, which is 36% up. So it's been a great couple of years. That, not even talking about the campground, that's been awesome. So just to summarize, not just, even in 21, we had good attendance. So the budget reflects the personnel and commodity costs to support the department. And as far as expenditures go, things are going up. So not a surprise to anybody, right? And so the budget reflects a couple of things, increases in wages and as well as supplies and commodities. So our wages, not just the full-time wages that we've been talking about in the staffing study, but also part-time, even umpires. I mean, if you tried to get an umpire recently, it's not easy. And so, in seasonal positions, lifeguards and concessionaires, we're staying current with the minimum wage standards, and also it's going up in 2022, and also competitive with the market in Branson. So also just to reflect our commodity increases have gone up between 15 and 20%. So just to give you kind of an overview, you'll have the line items, but if you see increases in there, those are the reasons why. Revenue, excited about revenue, and so we've had a good year at the campground. So, that supports a lot of what we do is the campground operation, but also we review fees on an annual basis. In fact, later tonight, I'll be bringing you recommended fees for next year. And so you're going to see some of our fees going up a little bit as it reflects increases in our cost of programs, but also not just costs going up. If more people participate, which I just mentioned, costs more, right? You have to buy T-shirts, and chlorine, just so you know, went up 30%. So big numbers there, but we're projected to, with the increases that we're suggesting or recommending to all, go up about 10% in revenues. And that, supports to recover all of our costs. So really, that's kind of what I wanted to key in on the operating budget. I'm going to move to the staffing study and personnel, if that's okay. Okay. So kind of like Keith was talking about, I did the same thing. I met with Jan in HR in June to provide the information as requested for the staffing study. So we have, I was able to provide national benchmarks and metrics from the 2002 National Recreation and Park Association Performance Review that helps talk about right sizing and what you do and, the totality of the right type of staff that you need. And I would say too, back to what Keith was saying about seasonal employees, our lack of ability to hire part-time in some seasonal positions and the stability of those, it has really fundamentally changed how our full-time staff has worked. Our full-time staff, are needed to work all the time. And so a lot of us work in the field, and that's just what is needed to cover things. I think I was the winner in the percents, which is not great when it comes to retention and what did you use, Kim? Oh, I hate using that word. So, but it wasn't great. And so, but in all defense, a lot of our positions, probably more than 50% of them are the top, the entry-level positions in the city. So, little defense there. So we, in working with Jan and HR department, the staffing study recommends 4 new positions. 2 of those are maintenance technicians, and 1 would be as part of the building maintenance area. So that would total 3 positions, 1 lead and 2 technicians to maintain city buildings. And our goal, kind of like what Keith was saying about wish you had more man hours, our goal is not just to maintain things, to make them better, to be proactive. So we're currently working on a project. If you've walked up to the HR department, things might look amiss because there's things everywhere and we're trying to paint and we're getting some new carpet and hoping to do more of that. So, as more city buildings come online, that will be something that will have more workload in that. Also, the second maintenance position would assist with park and landscape maintenance as well as trail maintenance. So as we work to continue to beautify Branson, the workload just keeps going up. And as someone was talking about, we're doing a lot of the projects ourselves. So I don't know if you saw some of the pictures of the press release about Cantwell Park and some of the other ones that we've done at the campground. And we have just found it's just really impossible to hire people and affordable. So we're taking on a lot of those projects ourselves, like Keith mentioned with his staff. So we're really proud to be working with a department that's willing to do that and improve the community. Another position is a recreation supervisor position. So this will help to offset the workload issues associated, as I mentioned, with not able to hire any part-time staff. Our full-time staff has really stepped up and requires nearly everyone, as I mentioned, to work in the field to maintain the staffing levels. We're open 7 days a week, and the Recplex is open 78 hours a week. So a lot of the work what we do is at night and on weekends, and so it's hard to hire enough people. Our full-time people have definitely stepped up and done a lot of that, but it's hard to hire people at the front desk and umpiring. And even I've worked in the concessions this summer. I can still make a hot dog. So hopefully someone will pay for it. And so last but not least is an office assistant position. So this position will help with our staffing issues, as I mentioned, at the front desk, and also provide a backup. We really have hardly any backup at all. And we were kind of losing some of our knowledge when people leave. And so we want to be able to maintain that knowledge. Also, our maintenance department, which has been growing, they need some help. We do a lot of work tracking the budget, so we're excited about the new software that Chad is working on, because we do a lot of probably work that we could life would be easier if we could better track our budget, and we solicit bids, contracts, all kinds of things, and then succession planning. So those kind of summarize our staffing study increases as proposed. And lastly, I know I'm talking really fast because I'm trying to get my time in, capital improvements. So we're really excited about capital improvements because, you know, we were on pause for probably the last couple of years of capital improvements. So when those returned, I feel like we've had a lot of momentum with them, and we've really rebounded. As I mentioned, we have recently rehabilitated Cantwell Park and saved $27,000 doing a lot of the work ourselves. And we installed a porous paved trail this year. We've installed new LED lights at Stockstill Park. We've done some improvements at Parnell Park and upgrades to the campground, and we've also upgraded the Branson Recplex. We painted the exterior of it for the first time, and we're getting ready tonight to replace an antiquated fire control system and replace the pool grading. So those were really exciting projects, so we want to capitalize on the momentum. If you saw the 2023 list that I gave to Ben and everybody's list, I mean, it's really big. It's a really long list. So the list, you know, it's meant to balance out, focusing on park improvements and then important upgrades that we'd like to see at the Recplex or neighborhood parks, and then maintenance items. So I think they put up there the priorities for 2023. So we were asked to kind of prioritize those. And the ones that are recommended for funding include the campground expansion. So that would obviously be the big project. And I'd like to say I've worked a lot with Michael and Keith and their staffs on this to get to this point, and we'll be working, hopefully, if it moves forward, you know, on the design and construction. And then also 3 other projects. We've got the replacement of the HVAC system at the Recplex. It's the first of 2 40-ton HVAC units that are on top of the roof, and it's 18 years old, and the expected life span is about 15 years. So I won't bore you with all of it, but I can say if we order it today, it's going to be like 6 months. So we need to get going on that. And the next one is replacement of the HVAC system at the community center. And so that is also a system that was installed when the building was built in 1991. So we like air and heat, you know, there's that. And since 2016, the repair costs for those units have been nearly $9,000. So we're considering that. And the last one is replacement of truck number 37, which is a 1996 flatbed dump truck that was taken out of service in February 2022, and it was surplus due to you know, age and not able to get parts anymore. So that was a hand-me-down from utilities, or was it Public Works, Cheryl? One of them. And then so we're using now another hand-me-down from utilities. And it has we're using truck number 94, which has a hydraulic pump that is getting weak, and we can no longer haul mulch or carry heavy things. So we borrow truck number 321 from the Public Works to use. So, you know, you can see just keeping up with the needs of the department. These are pretty basic things that we need. And then lastly, while they aren't on the list and recommended for funding right now, Mayor, you mentioned grants. So we are submitting 2 Land and Water Conservation Fund grants that will hopefully upgrade playgrounds at 2 of our parks, Eiserman Park and Parnell Park. So if we're able to get those, we would have to kick in about 50%, which is about probably around $90,000 to do those. And then we're also submitting the Recreation Trails Project Grant. And so if we put in about 20% of that grant, that could be up to $50,000. But in talking to Ben, he felt like that's something we could possibly, if we get those grants, afford as part of the Internal Service Fund. So I think I'm going to stop there, and happy to answer any questions.
Wow, that was a mouthful. I will tell you, I went by Cantwell Park, and it's night and day. Night and day
you.
difference.
I was gonna
You bet.
say, I took my son and hit 7 of his buddies over there last Saturday. They wanted to go shoot hoops, and they're like, let's go to the rec. I said, let's go to Cantwell. Oh, Dad, it's all, I'm like, no, they have fixed it up. And we got there and they were just ecstatic. I mean, beautiful job. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the fencing and the surface, and it was just unbelievable. And I also had a question about Murphy Park down below in our neighborhood there. Has there ever been any thought about replicating something like, I mean, there's that big, it's like a small pad and then that big empty. Has there ever been any thought of maybe replicating something like the Cantwell, a bigger pad with 2 goals
Murphy.
and?
I think the area you're talking about used to be our sand volleyball.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, and so, yeah, we
It's a
can.
mud pit now.
Yes, it
kinda
probably
hard.
is. So, as you know, Murphy is kind of it's at the end, it's a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And so we experience several problems there and vandalism and different things. So it is a really challenging situation for sure, knowing kind of what to put in there. We certainly have the basketball court, but it is on the list. One of the things the mayor has really brought attention to is improvement in neighborhood parks. So really, our goal is 2 parks a year. And so we've got them prioritized. And I know Murphy is on there. I can't say as I know where it is
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But I think all the parks, it's been hard to support the improvements in the parks because they don't bring in any revenue, right? And so I want to echo what Ted said about working with Ben. I mean, it has been great, and being able to kind of contemplate how do we put back into the parks, work on it ourselves, but also a little bit of money has been great. So definitely look at
Yeah,
Murphy.
and that does kind of collect some riffraff down there, and I don't
Yeah.
know if something nice like that might attract a different crowd, or if, you know what I mean?
See, that's what I think.
You know
I
what
think
I
it's
mean?
kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we make it nice down there, the
Sure.
more you'll have people down there, which will deter the people.
I think it might turn a different clientele down there if there was something more,
And maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
and more
absolutely.
lights, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe Chief Matthews, I'm sure, would have some input on that.
Yeah, Murphy is one of those parks, though. We have cut a lot of vegetation and put up lighting and things of that nature. But it is, I agree. I mean, you want to maintain things at a high level, and we hope to continue to do that. And that's definitely a park we'd like to upgrade.
because I could walk there in 3 minutes, but my kids don't like to go down there because it's,
Yeah, it's
it can be
a hard situation there with,
It is.
a lot of the apartments and things of that nature.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cindy, you're just doing a fantastic job. And you're right, when you put money into parks and things like that, those are not revenue generators, right? They're just pure expenses, with the exception of the campground. And I'm hesitant to throw out any numbers, but I think at one time when we looked at that expense for the campground, it was also going to generate 300,000 or
Yeah, net about 400 and some odd,
So if we
gross
could-
about 600.
so if we can spend $1 million and net 400, we want to do more of those.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sign me up. Yeah, definitely. And in talking to Ben, just real quick, I didn't key on this, is I was concerned, because I like the chief or Keith, are you sure we can afford it? I mean, we're all used to, you can't do that and you can't afford that for sure. And so it is awesome. And so in talking with Ben, one of the things that he looked at is with the positions folded in, how do we afford to do that? And the campground operation is obviously a huge part of being able to do that. So with the things, it is really important to do that because it would start to look not great in year 4, I believe. So he met with our staff and we kind of looked at the 5-year plan. And, we were pleasantly surprised. I was definitely not used to what he responded with. So I was like, what? We can still do this. So it was great.
Great. Any other questions for Cindy? Ruth, do you have anything?
No, I don't. I just want to say thank you to all the directors in the departments. They have done so much through the difficult times that they've gone through and have come out shining. I hear so many comments back from the public of customer service. They feel welcome and all the departments are doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
If I have any time left, I defer to Kendall. I think I don't.
You can defer it all to Kendall.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, if the other directors, the admin directors don't mind, I'm just gonna go through some of the ads for the administrative department. While Kendall's walking up here, I'll probably get done with them all. So information technology is the one that's gonna have the most activity for '23. Obviously, you guys know that they're right in the middle of the ERP process. We've got demos scheduled through the end of October, and that's gonna be a big lift for both, well, for the entire staff, all the staff, because everybody's going to get touched by this, and the way it's getting kicked off is exactly the way it needs to. GIS Tech, Chad pulled it, I stuck it back in there, so I overrode him. We'll see what happens on the outside of that, because I've heard a lot of directors saying that they really appreciate what he does. Legal, we've corrected some of the contractual budget, put money in there the way it should have been put in there, and also corrected salaries, both city attorney and prosecutor, corrected a lot of that. Human resources, the only real split there was splitting our payroll person between HR and finance. And the reason HR is because of that ERP is going to be data heavy, especially with FTEs and personnel. So there's going to be a lot of data that needs to be managed, and it's going to really help our process out next year if we're able to get up and live and running. In finance, we've got to come back to you with the short-term rental collections discussion. We've got a FTE stuck in there, but I'm not even sure that we'll need it. There's a lot of questions around short-term rentals, and that's not just here; it's across the country on how to deal with that. So that's going to take codes, planning. There's a lot of work that's going to go into that, but there is still a lot of work to be done. And then lastly, within finance, one of the things our team had talked about, instead of doing debt, I'm talking fire and then Cindy's projects, actually borrowing from ourselves internally, and you come up with that idea, this board came up with that idea a few weeks ago, and actually take some of the investments we have and foregoing the interest expense to others so we can afford some of the projects we've got coming on board even quicker. Then we're not hamstrung also by if we can pay it off early, we're just going to pay ourselves off early. That goes for internal lease programs where we want to keep the vehicles, along with some of the longer term, like the campground is a fairly easy one to do only because the revenue coming in are far higher than what the expense going out. So we're going to set something like that up and bring it back to the finance committee so they can take a look at it. Kendall?
Thank you very much for working on that. What do you think the time frame is for the short-term rentals?
I'm going to say first quarter of next year. I need to talk to Michael.
Okay.
And talk to codes still. Because the more we dug into it, the more questions we had as to how we want to move forward. It's going to start with what do we want to accomplish? And when I asked Matthew that question in our office, the conversation went a number of different places. Because short-term rentals don't fit within our codes real neatly. For instance, do you put a fire suppression that would otherwise be in a commercial business in a house? That's part of a short-term rental. So there's some certain code tweaks that's probably going to need to be made.
Yeah, I just know that that's one of the 10 items that have
big
potential
rocks.
of additional revenues.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody needs to be taxed fairly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I just think there's money on the table there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Ben, this is Chad. For IT, can I just do one very quick thing? What's not in the budget is funds for EV charging. I know Mayor and some of the aldermen have spoken about that, and we know that's a priority, a need, I should say, for our community. I did just this evening put in an application to DNR for an 80-20 matching grant. They actually name Branson in the grant in 65 corridor. And so there's a couple locations that we've submitted. And again, it'd be 80-20. So if we are fortunate enough to get awarded that, then I'll be coming to you with a requested budget amendment. And the way that grant works is we pay it 100% up front, and then they reimburse us 80% of that cost. So just wanted to give you an update.
Yeah, thank you for checking into those grants. I've been reading up about it, and Biden's printing money for that. we might
We're
as well get
submitted on
mine.
that one, and I think we have a very good shot. When I spoke to him on the phone, I think we have a good shot, so.
In my opinion, the more EV stations we have and promote that, the more visitors we'll have here. I think that'll be a direct result. Thank you very much, Chad. Okay, Kendall, let's talk sewer, huh?
Let's talk water and sewer. Okay, so last week, I took your guys' input and your questions and thought through that process, and I thought, how can I better equip you guys to handle the questions, you know, from the citizens? Because if we raise rates, we're going to have those questions. And I wanted to provide more background of how I got to where the rates that I presented to you last week. And through that, I'm going to touch back a little bit on the our traditional, I would say traditional methodology of spreading the cost out. And it's one thing I heard is you know, the tourism tax was voted on and approved for a specific purpose, and was for infrastructure to help reduce the impact on rates. And I want to provide some numbers to you here in a minute that will show that it is dramatically helping the rates. So those tourism dollars go towards our large capital items, those big ticket items that cost a lot of money to renovate and create to help further our infrastructure. So, for example, it could be a lift station that needs to be upsized or upgraded to accommodate for additional flows, which may be, usually in general, it's due to tourism. So tourism pays for tourism is the approach there. And then the smaller capital items in our operational budget is generally funded out of rates. And so the purpose behind that would be the ongoing maintenance of pump replacements or upkeep of existing equipment would be funded by the actual users themselves. And so with that, I want to share, so I looked at, when we've done this in the past, we've looked at what water and sewer rates would look like without tourism. So what's the big picture? And so I did an updated model. I took our model and took out the tourism funds and plugged it all into rates. And looking at that, you're looking at, and for 2023, the water rates would have to be 202% increase to accommodate for the operations, maintenance, and infrastructure. So that'd be your neighborhood improvements for water mains, rehabilitations. That'd be for your lift station upgrades. All those big ticket items that are generally funded by tourism would drive those rates up to 202% for 2023 in order to keep up with the current pace. And then in 2024, it'd be, for water, would be 41%. And then from there, we'd be in the positive and balanced, and it'd be 2% from there on. For sewer, you're looking at 2023 would be 60% rate increase. In 2024, it'd be 34% rate increase, and then from there on, it'd be a 2%. So I took and considered some options based off of the conversations last Thursday. And I still believe what I supplied to you guys last week would be our best approach for the simple of spreading the cost out, with hopes that you understand that the tourism dollars is helping to keep our rates down. Another thing is we are taking our reserves, which are at a high level right now because we've had some good years, right? What I heard from you guys is what cash is available, and so we are using our reserves cash to draw down. We are drawing down our reserves to maintain that operations and maintenance. And the 12% that are proposed for water and 7% for sewer for 2023 is a method of softening the impact later on in the years at a 5-year period. We like to spread that over a 5-year period and keep from having to, have a, let's say, a 28% increase for next year for water in order to scale back the rate increase this year, or for 2022. But I looked at options. I looked at tourism dollars, and could we pay for the small capital items, which is considered infrastructure. It's our pumps and equipments and things that have to be replaced or rebuilt because of their wearing out. I looked at supplementing that with tourism, which is normally paid for by rates. And then looking at that would definitely help us for a couple years. But when doing that, we'd still eventually, on the water side, we'd have to have a 11% increase in 2025 based on the 5-year outlook, and a 9% in 2026. If you look at sewer, it extends it out to 2026 and 2027. You'd have a 10 and a 15% increase. But when you add up those dollars for large capital on water and small capital on water, and use tourism funds to cover for that, you're looking at a $9 million per year average. Okay, that's for water. And then on sewer, currently what we have in place is a $4.3 million average. So on the water side, the big ticket driver for that would be the water meters, the replacements, the water tower maintenance, also the neighborhood subdivision improvements is driving that $9 million mark. So when you add those together, we're at $13.3 million on per year average that we have to spend out of tourism dollars to fund large capital and small capital. When you look at our overall tourism dollars, I looked at the last 9 years, and it averages out to $12.5 million per year. So there's not enough tourism dollars to pay for both large capital and small capital. And then that's $12.5 million total. So again, your 25% has to go to marketing out of that 12.5%, or 12.5 million. So you've got the marketing money that has to come out of there, and plus money that we share with Public Works and downtown improvements and other road improvements of that nature. So again, it just further shows that tourism alone can't pay for large capital and small capital together. And at some point, I mean, we will have to look at some bonding on the tourism side, just even for large capital, especially if we have to expand treatment plants or do some major lift station improvements. We'll most likely have to look at some bonding. And that was part of the information we put out when the tourism tax was renewed this last time around. So, I put all that together to say that, I've looked at some options of tourism dollars. The tourism is helping. Is it enough to cover for it all and keep rates down? No, it's not, when you look at the big picture and you start putting the numbers together. Any questions so far? Betsy.
I just want to say thank you. I know I talked to you this morning. I was super passionate at last week's meeting about not raising those rates. I still wish we could not raise rates, obviously. But after thinking about it over the weekend, that was why I reached out and kind of wanted this information, because when we have conversations to have educated information, I think that's huge, to know the true numbers, for our citizens to understand tourism tax is working. It is keeping their rates low, but we can't keep them just crazy low forever, or we're going to be in trouble. So thank you for going into those details, taking the time, putting the work in to share that information so the community is aware why we need these increases. I would like to see something, and I think Pam brought it up at the last meeting, that's more consistent. We talked about how everyone was kind of used to this 2% increase every year. And some years it gets reverted back to, well, let's just go with the 2% we're used to. I think what you're showing and what you've done a great job of demonstrating today is that 2% isn't going to cut it any longer. And so can we as a board these guys as a board, as a finance committee, make a recommendation of the 2% isn't there, so is it 6% that becomes the norm? Is it, what is that, Kendall, that it looks like maybe over a 5-year period that we need to make sure we're moving forward and future boards are looking at 5%, 6%, whatever that is versus 2%?
Okay. So I did look at that. If, for example, if I did plug in 6%, and I've actually, Chad has my model available, and we can do this live if you'd like, but it does take some time. But I want to just share with you that when I plugged in 6%, we can make it, for 2023, we can make it. However, in 2024, we're right at 20% reserves, and we're hitting the line there. And then for 2025, we'd have to have an even greater increase. What I presented to you last week with the on water side of a 12% in 2023 and a 12% in 2024 and 10% in 2025 and 8% in 26 and 2% in 2027 on water, that's based off of projections. And 5 years out, I'm hoping that the revenues come in better in 2023 and it softens 2024 and it just cascades from there on, right? But I have to look out ahead to help project and soften that. I can, right now, I mean, we could do a 2% for water and 2% for sewer, but if we don't get a huge amount of revenue increase, then in 2024, the citizens are going to be hit even harder. You're looking at a possible 28% for water rate increase, and for 2024, sewer would be 22%. So my goal is to soften that and try to smooth it out as much as possible and try to get ahead of the curve if we can. But right now we are, if you look at, I think they have it pulled up there. So if you look at, okay, you're on sewer. So on the sewer side of things, for 2023 and 2024, we're still operating in the red. If you look at the two numbers below, the 2 lines below the percentage rate there, and what we're doing is we're drawing down our cash reserves. So we're utilizing those good years to draw down and not have to increase rates. So if you look at we have a 10%, actually, if we change that back to 7 on the 2023 there, Stephanie, there you go. Okay, so if we have a 7% for 2023 next year on sewer, in reality, we need to also add an additional 18.3% just to get us above the red, to get us in the black, and where we're not, I don't want to say burning down our cash, but we're using our reserves.
So Kendall, to be fiscally responsible, what percentage of rate increase would you suggest for both water and sewer?
So what I would suggest is for water, the 12% for 2023, and for sewer, I plugged in 7%, but I think it actually should be 10% for sewer. When you put 10% in there, as you can see, years 25, 26, 27 starts getting back into the black versus where it was in the red all the way across the board there.
So if we did the 12% for 23, I don't know if we're looking at water or, oh, this is water up here.
Yeah, this is water now.
So if we did the 12% for 23, what does 24, 25, 26 look like?
So that's, so 24 would be 12%, 25 is 10%, and 26 is 8%. Now keep in mind, that is figuring a 3% cost increase on operations and maintenance from there on out. Again, before we had 2% in there. I plugged in 3% based off of just where we're at with inflation and the constant cost increases. As Cindy pointed out, chlorine, we went up 33%.
Yeah.
Some are really high, some are down low.
Sure.
And so we're trying to soften those increases as much as possible, being realistic as much as possible without being overinflated there.
Sure, but if I'm reading the chart right, if we had a 12% increase in 23, 24, 10 and 8%, 25, 26, then that would level us back to 2%.
That's correct, yeah. So we've got a period of time here that we've got to get over a hump, and then, and once we get through this 4-year period, then we can get back to hopefully a 2%.
Is this 4-year period we're referring to, it's the next 4 years, is there something in that that's making that a higher number? And the real question is, if we could level this off, in other words, instead of trying to shoot for a 2% increase in 5 years through the next 10 years, if it was just leveled at 4% or some other number. In other words, instead of the goal being, let's increase the rates now so we can get it back to 2%, is there a number that would flatten that line out?
Flatten it out quicker?
Flatten it out, yeah, today.
Okay, so Stephanie, can you change 2024 through 2026 as 2%? And then let's,
No, I'm suggesting, and I don't know, and I don't know if we have the time right now, but if it was 4% for the next 10 years or 5% for the next 10 years, what would that look like?
so it's the immediate issue at hand.
So we do have an immediate issue.
We have an immediate issue because we are adding big ticket items. We're adding water tower maintenance. We are adding some personnel, and we're adding salary increases to this. So that's your ticket items. It's driving the water side up. And same with on sewer.
Kendall?
Okay, so she did enter in 4% across the board, and everything ends up red.
You look down below, we're at 30%, on 2023, we're at 36% reserves. 2024, we're at 16%. Then we're at -4 on 2025.
So, and here again, I don't know if we have the time, but what if it was 6% across the board? Can we insert that and see what that does?
Can I just make a real quick statement?
You bet,
The reason why we're in this position, why we're having this conversation today is because we've kept trying to avoid doing anything, right?
That is
And
correct,
so
yeah.
if we keep avoiding and we keep not addressing it, it's going to be painful. And I totally understand. But I also understand what you're facing when we look at this stuff. If we don't do something today, this picture's not going to change. It's just going to get worse.
Yeah,
We just
no, I-
prolong it down the road.
Yes.
And I'm with you, and I do believe that, and Kendall, thank you so much for showing how much subsidy, how much savings our residents are getting based on the tourism tax, because that was the plan, right? So our community is getting a significant savings from our tourism tax, so that's working.
That is correct, yeah.
What we're faced with is inflation, right? I mean, that's not just a word, it's a real number. Nationwide, I believe it's reported at 8%, but Cindy mentioned chlorine going up 30%. Kendall, I believe you mentioned some chemicals you need going up 50%?
Oh, even greater than that. Yeah, we've
Greater
had
than
carbon
50%.
went up 90%.
Yeah, so, and that's something we have no control over. So what I would like to interject is we're still maintaining and keeping the promise that was made to the citizens many years ago. We are still subsidizing the water and sewer rates out of tourism tax. However, as Pam mentioned, it's not sustainable. And it's not fiscally responsible to take money, to continue taking money out of savings to subsidize, because that is not sustainable. So it's no different than your budget at your house, right? If you keep taking out of savings to cover a payment, something's going to give. And so to avoid oh my gosh, now we need a 20, 30% increase, I do think it's fiscally responsible for the Finance Committee and this board to quit kicking the can down the road. And I just think we need to be good stewards of our taxpayer money and agree on a reasonable, sensible increase.
At what point did the tourism tax stop fulfilling its intent? Was that just since the pandemic when everything started going up, or has it been longer than that? Long time?
I think it's been longer than that. I'd have to, it takes some research and some number crunching, but
It's
it's been longer than that, yeah.
Kendall, we knew when going into this that it wasn't going to cover everything. We knew we should have asked for more, I think, if I remember the story correctly. It was never intended, I think that was the intention of the original founders, but then I think they also had to come to the realization with what we got. It's like the public safety tax. We should have probably asked for more at the time, knowing that it was going to limit us in what we were doing. But anyway, I think, you know, it was a great intention, but how long has that been on the books? Was this in the 90s? Was it in the 90s?
Yeah, I believe so.
Beginning 2000? Yeah. Everything has changed since then. None of us are operating our personal finances, our business finances, anything the same today as we were back then. I mean, it'd be great. And, you know, going back to our mayor's comment about you can't keep dipping into savings. Savings is for a one-time, you know, emergency or whatever. It's never intended to be ongoing, because if you're struggling to take it out of savings to pay, there's no way you're putting it back in, right? Because you don't have the money to put it back in. And so this is a difficult decision. Again, you know, if we had done the recommended increases, you know, probably over the last few years, instead of asking for a 12% increase today, it might have only had to have been a 4 or a 5% increase, which would have been a lot easier to talk about. But we can ignore it this time, and then next year it's going to be even uglier, right? So at some point you just have to say, let's make a tough decision and hope that people know that the pure intent of heart is that we're doing it for the ongoing sustainability of our community. And we cannot live or operate or ask visitors to come and see us if we don't have water, sewer here.
And there's a kind of a statement that I wrote up that I failed to share last week, but I thought about, but the objective is to build and maintain a healthy, stable utility capable of providing the necessary services to meet the objectives of the citizens of Branson, regulatory requirements, and to maintain the capacity to adequately serve the economic engine which has allowed the city to thrive over the years. So that's something that I think we can use to help try to sell this out, is we're trying to maintain our economic engine. We're trying to keep this city alive, and what better way to do it is provide good water, sewer service. So,
Just a quick pointer. So I thought I heard you mention you were basing your cost off of a 3% increase, but the rate after 2026 is 2%. Are we setting ourselves up for failure again by staying at that 2% threshold?
so I think the world, and this is my crystal ball, but I think the world's going to hopefully settle back out a little bit, and we can go back to a 2% cost increase from year to year. Historically, it worked well for us over the past years. However, through this COVID period, it's been a challenge for us, obviously with inflation and all. So I think the whole world's going through a change here. I think it's going to have to settle back out. Will costs go back down? I don't believe so, but I think they're going to settle back out eventually. So yes, we'll change the model to reflect that, and it may be next year we'll change it and it'll start looking better, where we don't have to do the 24, 25, 26 as high as what we've got shown. But again, we do the best assessment with the information we have at the time, at this time right now, and then we'll take and reassess it next year and refine it again and bring it back to hopefully chop those numbers down. So.
And did we decide that this 12% water, 10% sewer was across the board, residential and commercial? Or, because last up I'd heard it may.
So that's one other thing I heard you guys mention was, well, what is our other options? So I look at time here real quick. We've got, I ran the numbers by running it, a 2% residential increase only, and put the loading on the commercial. So Ben was gracious enough to provide me with 2021 revenue numbers as far as what is commercial, what is residential. So on the water side, 75% of the revenue comes from commercial, 25% from residential. On the sewer side, it's a little heavier because we have more sewer in residential areas, so it's 67% commercial and 33% residential. And looking at the numbers, if we was to hold a 2% for residential on water and sewer, commercial water rates for 2023 would be 16%, and sewer would be 15%.
We just need better numbers, Kendall.
Wow.
Are we in a position where we can run a couple scenarios, or is that just work you did, Ben, on the side? In other words, if we did residential water 6% or 8% across the board, what would that be for commercial?
Okay, so I'm not in a position to do that.
Yeah.
So I had to create a whole nother spreadsheet.
Sure, that's what I would expect.
To add this into the model, to split those apart, it was going to be very challenging to do that in a short amount of time. I did create another spreadsheet, but I don't have it available for us right now to do that. And again, we do have a public hearing that we've got to do on October 25th. I can bring more information back, but I think we've kind of narrowed down our thought process a little bit here today.
So we don't need to make this decision today. We're going to have a public hearing. When we have the public hearing, and I don't know if you want to do a model or just run some scenarios, but for example, if there was a 6 or 8% residential increase for the next, 10 years projected, what would that do for the commercial side? Because I think we all believe that it's the tourists that's driving up our expenses, even when we replace our valves in that, right? I mean, if it was a community without all the commercial, we wouldn't have 8 and 10, 12-inch valves, right?
That is correct, yeah.
So when we have to rebuild those, I think that burden should be on those that are using it, which is the visitor. Okay, so let's not belabor this. We don't need to make a decision today. The work that you did, and Ben, very, very appreciative. And Kendall, I take my hat off to you for trying so hard to keep these percentages down. The fact that you went and took the large capital items and added the small capital items out of the tourism tax portion to continue to try to find ways to keep this percentage as low as we can is very complimentary. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Your Honor,
Yes.
we will have to bring to the public hearing number a recommendation to what we want those to be. Because we have to have a public hearing on what the water sewer rates would be.
We have to have, in that meeting, we have to bring a fixed number. Can we bring a couple alternatives to discuss? And
You can, you have to bring a fixed number to comment on, and then there is yet room for a decision thereafter.
okay. So you need that number now?
Well, Kendall will have to have something to bring. Now, I mean, it's kind of like the levy. We bring the levy higher and then we would reduce. So
Yes,
we had
yeah.
a public hearing on that. It's similar. It can be done that way.
Okay.
But just so you know, there will be numbers that will have to be presented.
Well, I know what you said, Kendall, keeping the water rates at 2% for residential and bumping commercial to 16%, that seems out of balance. And so I would sure like to see what a more nominal increase for our residents. And when I say nominal, 6, 7%, 8%, what that effect would have on the commercial side.
I would just, looking at the numbers that I looked at for today,
Yes.
the amount of revenue that comes in off of residential is minimal
Well, I'm
compared to.
looking at that. 75% of our water is commercial and
Yeah.
25% is from residential.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is even moving that residential number won't have a big impact.
So my assumption, just out of the box looking at it
Yeah.
right now is if you did 6% for water, or for residential and water, you would, yes, let's see, I had 16, so you would, yeah, Ben, I think is accurate, probably 13, 14% on commercial from 16.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna, it would take quite a bit more residential increase to really start drawing that commercial down. Because it's so heavily loaded on the commercial side.
Sure it
There are
is.
big users. They use a lot of water.
Yeah.
And so they're paying, their share.
Okay, you wizards up here.
But 12% jumping to 13 to 14% isn't. Does that make sense? If you put it at 6% and then you had to go, because obviously it's 12% now, even for commercial. So if you jumped it up to 13 or 14%, I mean, that's a little bit higher than what we're saying now, but it's more palatable when you say, well, we're thinking 12, so if we go to 13 or 14, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So Marshall, you're saying going to from 12 to the 13, 14 on the commercial side is,
It's not as big a jump when
Yeah.
we're already saying we're gonna probably have to do 12, you know?
I understand what you're saying, yeah. Okay.
So
And
I
like I
guess
said, I just
ask-
have to look at the numbers to see
yeah,
what.
asking the same question a different way. If commercial went to 14%, what would that cause the residential to be?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can have that prepared and ready for the public hearing topic conversation, so.
You good with that, Lisa? Or he needs to leave with a number?
What I'm hearing from you all is, my original proposal of the 12 and the 10 for sewer, 12 for water, 10 for sewer is, obviously it's not I want to say it's not what we'd like to do, but I think I've done everything I can do to soften it as much as possible, without changing up the method completely and like I said, doing the commercial only or a partial share on the residential side. But I would propose to bring back the 12 and 10 to the public hearing, and then I can bring additional numbers if the question's asked.
I think one thing that's important is that the community that's listening, that are here, that they remember that their rates are 200% lower than they would be without the tourism tax. So when we're talking about a 12% increase, you're still almost, I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to where they would be. So at 12 and 12, we don't want to go too heavy on commercial side where that's just going to get passed on as well. So it's still getting, passed on. So just that 200% is so important to remember. That's where your rates, 200% lower. That's huge, Kendall. So thank you for that information.
Okay, Kendall, are you good?
Yes, I'm good.
So, Your Honor, the way that works is that what's in the code book, the actual rate charges, that's what is presented as changed or whatever it changed, and that's what you had a public hearing on, and then that can be, changed
Yeah.
out after the public hearing.
Fair
But
enough.
that's what.
Fair enough.
That actually wraps us up, except for Colby Krzyzanowski's actually watching this. And I asked him to plug in what it would look like if we added a couple of firefighters, right, in the
yes,
public
yes,
safety
yes.
fund. And I may get with Kathy later, because I believe we can probably do a reserve, if you will, and see two things, see what sales tax looks like, and see what the impact of the compensation study would be. Because we want to be able to correct whatever's wrong with the current employees before we start hiring new. But we get those two solved, we could probably move forward to something.
Thank you for doing that, because I know, hearing from the Finance Committee and the Aldermen, and listening to what the firefighters have to go through, adding those extra couple firefighters sounds like it'll go a long way.
And the chief's gone, otherwise,
Yeah, well, if the chief's not here, we don't need to talk about
we're
it.
just take two, right?
Okay, I need to adjourn these meetings. Which one, do you have a preference, Lisa?
No, you're good. whatever you do. It's fine.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Aldermen.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ruth, I didn't hear you. Oh,
Aye.
aye. Okay, thank you very, very much. Ben, thank you.